Thank you. We'll now turn to a quick presentation from the trade unions on the staff perspective and what we can do together. And we're going to start with Andy Walls from the NAHT. Thank you.
Thanks, Becky. I'm Andy Walls of the National Association of Head Teachers, the School Leaders Union. We represent 42,000 serving and recently retired school leaders in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. I appreciate it's been a long webinar already, so I'll keep it short. Just to say that the role of school leaders is to create and maintain, working with their governing body, with the local authority, with their trust, depending what type of school they are, to make sure there is a safe environment for their school and setting, and to be responsible for that. And that's important because that's where children can go to learn and to thrive and give of their best. And for that to happen, it's vital that children are present, of course, as a start, and fit in well enough to attend lessons, are able to concentrate. We've talked about COT earlier, and to participate fully in the lessons. And when staff themselves are ill, that of course adds to the disruption, not only to children's learning and to routines, but to school life and to the expense of schools, which Benita Miracle, right at the top of the webinar, put out about £758 million lost last year, just in staff cover. So even if it were just that we were needing to tackle, that would be important. That's money that's not being spent on education. So overall, it's vital that schools are safe places for pupils and staff alike. And that's all I've got time to say, so I'm passing on to whoever's up next. Who's up, mate?
Hello, yeah, my name's Tom Rigby. I'm from the JMB Trade Union. We've gone through a lot of this. We've had some great speakers about these key points. We're aware of the impacts. It was frightening what we heard early on about COVID and having a bigger impact on workers in the education sector than the healthcare sector. We know there's a problem with what they call presenteeism, where people are going into work when they shouldn't really, just as kids are going into work when they shouldn't as well. We know that there's a real danger for people who've got vulnerable members of their family that they might spread stuff to, or vulnerable members of staff themselves, right? We know about these things. We know about the amount of time people spend indoors has an impact on their susceptibility. The one thing I'd like to add, and something I think we need to look at, is in every school, we should be looking at working together to get a picture of what people see as the impact themselves. We can do a survey of members of all the different unions, how many different kinds of conditions you've got, what you've had, what you've picked up. That'd be a really good way of building up the evidence base to make the case. That's my contribution for you.
Good evening all. I'm Wayne Bates. I'm a National Negotiating Official for NASWT. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about employers' duties to workers and others. And they really all stem from the Health and Safety Work Act 1974, which states and imposes an overarching duty on all employers to do everything that is reasonably practicable to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of workers, and in this case that would extend to pupils as well. That then is the basis. Then there are other regulations that sit underneath, such as Regulation 6 of the Workplace Health, Safety and Welfare Regulations, and that places a duty on employers to ensure that every enclosed workplace is ventilated with a sufficient quantity of fresh or purified air. Now, in addition to those, there are also regulations on a nation basis. So, for instance, in Wales, there is a specific school premises regulations, 1999, which state that the ventilation in classrooms must be a minimum of 8 litres per person per second. And there are similar provisions in Scotland in the School Premises General Regulations and Standards 1967 and the Northern Ireland Building Handbook. Unfortunately, in England, The similar regulations were swept away in Michael Gove's bonfire of regulations. So in England, we only have the welfare regulations. There is also the management of health and safety regulations, which introduced the risk assessment regime. And basically, that says that any hazard must be risk assessed. So in the case of where there is insufficient ventilation, or the possibility of infections pressing, that would be a hazard, and that should be risk assessed. And each union website has further information around ventilation and clean air, and also a copy of the joint ventilation guidance that the unions have put together. Thank you.
I think it's me up next. So I'm Jenny Cooper. I'm on the National Executive of the National Education Union, and just going to talk briefly about the importance of CO2 monitors in schools, which became important to us, first of all, during COVID. And we did experience deaths of some of our teacher and support staff members during the pandemic, sadly. So CO2 monitors were apparently sent out to schools by the DfE during the pandemic, although lots of schools didn't appear to kind of receive them, or if they did, they didn't receive enough. And obviously the reason for wanting to use those during COVID was we found out from our members that many people were working in classrooms where windows were stuck because the buildings were old, or the windows had been painted shut. There were, damage to windows and doors and things that made ventilation very difficult. Our classes are often overcrowded, causing higher levels of CO2, and there are not enough breaks sometimes in order to get an air change between one lesson and the next. And often, even in our special schools, we didn't have access to PPE or any kind of masks to wear. So CO2 monitors did become important, but as I say, a lot of our members found that they didn't really have access to them. So many of our schools actually did self-fund the monitors themselves. They purchased their own ones. And then in some cases, they stayed in offices unopened or were never found. Then we were sent, where we were sent the monitors, we were sent the DfE guidance to go with them, which people have reported previously. Was set at 1,500 parts per million, where our own guidance, our own joint union guidance, was for lower than that, because we knew that wasn't safe. And as Benita and Stephen said earlier, we're not only talking about COVID anymore, we're talking about flu, we're talking about RSV, we're talking about all sorts of other infections, but also children's ability to learn, and teachers and children's and support staff's ability to concentrate, because the air that they're breathing is fresh and pure. So we've tried to get our safety reps organising collectively in our union. We've got posters that were sent out to all of them, and we've encouraged them to undertake kind of grassroots action in their school, to use their regular inspection as a safety rep to go around and check that CO2 monitors are plugged in, and that they monitor the results of them, that they check in classrooms where the results might be high, whether people have used the ventilation that's available to them, for example, opening windows, possibly opening more windows if one window doesn't work, possibly opening a door as well, etc., etc. And if everything is open and the readings are still too high, what is the issue? Is it that people have been in there too long? Is it that there's too many people in there, etc., etc.? So they would then collect that evidence, and that would form part of a risk assessment process, which they would then work together with the management to try and work out what control measures could be put in place to keep everybody safer. And the control measures would, as I've said already, be things around more ventilation, maybe increasing the number of breaks, removing people from the room at certain points, going outside so the room has a chance to recover and have a sort of refresh of its air, using alternative spaces, looking at class size for different sessions, and then, possibly as a last resort, but using masks or PPE. Freudian slip there as a teacher. Okay, I hope that helps. I think that's my time up. Thank you very much.
I think it's me next then, colleagues. So good evening, everyone. My name is Claire Keir. I'm a National Officer for UNITE the Union, representing our members in local authorities and, of course, school support staff. I'll be very brief. I'm aware of the time, but I think this is a really important point to raise, and that is what can staff do in the workplace. So first and foremost, I would hope that if you're attending today, you probably are already a member of a trade union, but if you're not, first and foremost, please make sure that you join up. I see some claps there. And not only that, but please encourage your colleagues to join a trade union as well. The more of us that are in trade unions, the stronger we are, the better able we are to tackle these issues at work. Once you're in the union, do make sure that you elect a health and safety rep in your workplace. If there's a vacancy after today's meeting, it might be that you want to put yourself forward to be a rep, and that'd be absolutely brilliant. But do ensure that there's an elected health and safety rep in each of your workplaces. There's many benefits to having such a rep. Reps will be fully trained by their trade union with the legislation. They will understand what the issues are. They will have protection under the legislation, and very importantly, they will be able to conduct workplace inspections as well and make recommendations on how to improve health and safety in the workplace. Once you've got your reps in place, it's a very good idea to arrange joint trade union meetings, and you can discuss ventilation in the workplace. You can also collectively identify what your key concerns are and, where possible, what the solutions to those concerns might be. It's very important then that your reps are able to raise those problems collectively with the employer. It may be that in some cases it's necessary to follow, for example, a grievance process, but of course this is such an important issue that affects everyone in the workplace. Our hope is that we'll be able to work collaboratively with school leaders and management as well, and agree a joint action plan to improve the situation in the workplace. So very important, join your trade union, get active in your trade union, and let's work collectively to resolve these problems. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. Sorry, I'm Mike Hines. I'm from UNISON. I've been the person behind the camera moving these slides on, so it's just slightly easier for me at the moment just to have my camera off whilst I carry on with this and just talk to you about us utilising as trade unions a collective approach on how we utilise both the guidance we've got, but also the advice that's out there. And one of the things that we've heard from all our speakers today is the importance of we would call good infection prevention control measures. In health and safety terms, we use the term applying the principles of prevention and expecting our employers to think about what risks are out there and to control those risks at different levels. So one of the good things that we've heard about today is understanding the different mitigations and opportunities that are there for our employers and for us to look at, which includes the good ventilation, which includes the use of air filtration. But one of the key things that's also really important is about when, as Tom said, the issue about presenteeism and people feeling they have to come into work sick, you're not doing people favours by doing so, and having a better approach to that is really important. We've heard again from speakers about the pressure on parents with getting children to attend and understanding that approach, and maybe having a dialogue with the school about how do we support vulnerable staff, vulnerable children, and maintaining a good balance between that. Again, we've also heard about the exposure risk to staff and understanding that staff in education settings are in society looking to be as a higher level as those working in health settings about exposure and risk to pathogens and biological agents and how they need to be controlled. It's really important that we do some further information on that. But as Stephen said, one of the things that we might want to consider is about the preventative approach to utilising vaccinations and considering staff being able to take up flu vaccinations or those approach going forward. So I think it's really important that we see this, and the purpose of this webinar was about how we can work together, both as workers, union members, parents and carers, and having dialogue with schools about how we can move that forward. So let's hand back to Becky for her to have a chat about how we can move that forward.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you to all the speakers and unions who have joined us today. And finally, we're going to move on to Leila Williams from the Corsi Rosenthal.
Hello.
Go on,
Becca,
Leila.
Becca, we've lost your thing. So if we hand over to Leila.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Leila Williams from the Corsi Rosenthal Foundation UK, and just wanted to pick up that theme of how do we work together. We're a group of people who've been working together for a number of years now to support children and vulnerable people to benefit from breathing cleaner air. Like many of you who are on the webinar, it's lovely to see so many friends and colleagues. Can I have the next slide? So, yeah, excuse the funny name, the Corsi Rosenthal Foundation. We're named after the two engineers who invented do-it-yourself air filters in the US of A, and we continue to work closely with them. But we also work closely with lots of organisations around the UK, in England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. And I've just pulled out on this slide a few, just a few, some of the organisations, many of them who are on the webinar, who like us want to help and support parents, teachers, head teachers and teaching staff get cleaner air into your classroom or your school. They might be local to you, they might be national organisations, but really all we wanted to emphasise is there are lots of us out there who really want to help, and it's been great to work with the unions on this webinar as just an example of that. Can I have the next slide, please? So again, just some samples around the resources that ourselves and colleagues have already created that might help in having that dialogue with your school or within your school. We've got flyers, we've got PowerPoint presentations, posters, and template letters. So, for example, if you wanted to run a STEM project to teach children about the benefits of breathing clean air in school, we've got some science experiments on our websites to help you do that. And we've also got instructions on how to build your own do-it-yourself air cleaner as part of that project. Or if you want to write to your head teacher or to your MP and tell them about the benefits of clean air, we've got template letters. So just some examples. Next slide, please. We have a route map to clean air, and it's just got 6 simple steps. Matt's talked about them, 6 relatively simple steps to getting from where you are now to breathing cleaner air in your school. And I think it's worth noting that in other countries, they're investing millions, if not billions of dollars into their schools to ensure that teachers, staff and pupils can breathe cleaner air. And finally, it's really clear today that breathing cleaner air is really important for us all. And we would say, wouldn't we, that it's interesting that if you're in the Houses of Parliament or in the Ministry of Defence or even at the Economic Forum in Davos, and we understand also at the Department of Education, they all ventilate and filter the air in their buildings. So our perspective is very much, if they breathe clean air, why not your children and ours? Thank you.
Thank you, Leila. So if I can just quickly talk about the options and available for resources for staff and joint union. We've mentioned about the joint trade union guidance. We're excited to say that coming soon we'll be updating that, which will take account of today's webinar, the information, the new research out there, and to kind of show and support that. And what we would say is that this webinar will also be available for people to see and to use this and to share it with colleagues and to share it with other parents and to those within schools that can help support that. The one other thing that when we talk about, when I was saying about how we can come together to support staff and understanding how we work together, is we just want to take the opportunity to encourage people to register for something called the Big Zoom. It's a memorial call for Zane Gabiola. Zane unfortunately lost his life as a result of basically toxic issues resulting in the house. You can go and see the truth about Zane there on the 28th of April this year. We'll be supporting the parents to talk about that. NEU will be hosting that, and you can use the QR code on screen at the moment to go and to find that. If you can't find that, if you go to UNISON's webpage and click on events, you'll be able to see that from there. So if I can now stop sharing and hand back over to Becky.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike and Leila, and thank you for all the speakers and unions that have joined us today. Particular thanks to the Corsi Rosenthal Foundation for partnering with us to put together this webinar. We hope you can take the information back to your schools and use it locally. The webinar will be available on UNISON's YouTube channel. This is a really important issue for us to work together on, and we're determined to campaign for clean air in all of our schools and in all of our classrooms. Thank you.